Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tara Casey. I am on the faculty at University of Richmond School of Law, and I'm also the director of our Caricos Center for Pro Bono and Public Service. Thank you so much for joining us today on this program to engage law students and our soon-to-be graduates in pro bono service in efforts specifically that have been mobilized to respond to the COVID-19 crisis. As you know, this is a time of great uncertainty and challenges, and for people who are facing uh, legal issues stemming from it, this is truly being hitting hard those who are in the lower income brackets and also those who are prior to this already facing some great challenge. This time period is also one in which people who maybe previously were not facing challenges are finding themselves now in new environments because of the economic realities of precautionary measures. So we are very grateful to the community partners in our region and across Virginia who have mobilized to prepare to respond to the legal needs that will be coming from communities all the way from Appalachia to Tidewater. As you know from the description, the partner today is the Greater Richmond Bar Foundation, and I'm very excited to introduce Allie Fannin, who is the Executive Director of the Greater Richmond Bar Foundation. The Greater Richmond Bar Foundation is one of the founding partners behind JusticeServer, which is not only a case management tool used by legal aids in Virginia, but it is also a pro bono portal connecting pro bono attorneys, law students, and paralegals to the needs of the community. The purpose of today's program is to prime the pump, so to say, is to mobilize law student and soon-to-be graduate volunteers into JusticeServer, as JusticeServer will be serving a critical role in connecting those in our community with needed legal services with those who can help them. So thank you so much, Allie, for joining us today and giving us this initial background and primer and training on JusticeServer, especially as it relates to responding to the issues coming out of COVID-19. Just some housekeeping notes. I am recording this so that it will be placed on the Caricos Center website for viewing later. So if there's anything that you've missed from today, please don't worry. It will be posted on our website later, and I will email everyone with that information. Also, if I would ask for everyone to keep themselves on mute. We do have a fairly large group here, and that will just help to make sure that Allie can be heard, although it is rare for Allie not to be heard, but it will ensure that Allie will remain heard. And if you do have any questions for me or for Allie, please put them into the chat. You can either direct them to everyone or you can direct them privately to me. I will be keeping an eye on the chat, and I will pass those questions on to Allie when the timing is appropriate. So thank you all again for coming, and thank you, Allie, for joining us today.
Thank you, Tara. I'm very pleased that we're having a large response. As Tara mentioned, I'm with the Greater Richmond Bar Foundation, and we are locally located in Richmond, serving the Central Virginia area. And our main mission is to connect volunteers to pro bono opportunities, and we do that through different directions. We have a clearinghouse that assists nonprofits. We do a triage partnership with legal aid. We run an eviction diversion program, and we do all these things primarily through JusticeServer. So it's appropriate for you to learn about JusticeServer now. And as Tara mentioned, we are really looking at getting registrations now for the ability to connect people and volunteers when the needs arise in the near future. So I really appreciate it. A little teeny background about JusticeServer. It is an online tool, as Tara mentioned, but it is something that was really a great collaboration of the Central Virginia community, starting way back in 2011 with the initiation of the Virginia Supreme Court's Pro Bono Summit. We had stakeholder meetings with legal aids, the corporate law departments, volunteers, and really decided that we needed an online system that could better facilitate legal aid in the handling of their own cases, but also connecting pro bono volunteers to those cases. And it was really thanks to a great long process supported by many volunteers, many funders, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention or show you on the screen. So I invite you to peruse through those. They were very pivotal in creating JusticeServer. We went through a second development thanks to national grants from Salesforce and the Legal Services Corporation, and now JusticeServer is statewide accessible. It is also available in other states, California and New York. And when you go on JusticeServer, you will notice that there are other states involved, but you can filter to Virginia. So with that, I'm going to get a little into what is JusticeServer and how do you do it. JusticeServer is a two-sided coin of case management. The legal aids have access to their case information, but they're able to post case information on a publicly accessible website. www.justiceserver.org is where our online portal is located. It is really user-friendly. I'm going to still go through some screens so that you'll know and be familiar. And again, we're encouraging everyone to register now, even if you don't know where you're going to volunteer. On www.justiceserver.org, you're seeing the landing page. It's like any web page. You're going to be able to register. If you're already registered, you can log in and you'll have a user ID and password. But this is where you can see cases, volunteer opportunities, and things of that nature. So when you click register, I'm not going to go through each field, but you will be asked some basic information. You're going to be asked your email address because obviously that's how we connect to you, but that's going to become your user ID. So use an email you want to have as your user ID. You're going to have to pick a password, and it's got some instructions there for you of which kind of characters need to be in there. Again, try to remember that. You're going to obviously fill in your basic contact information, but this is below where we're going to gather your experience. So most of you are in law school or soon to graduate, and you are going to pick in the type area where the top right red arrow is law student. That will change the fields, and it will allow you to enter your law school, your graduation date, and I point out a third arrow of languages. If you have other languages you are fluent in, please select those. There's a menu option there, drop down, and language services are always a needed service, and I definitely encourage you to put all that you are fluent in, and you're welcome to put in your explanation down further on the page how fluent you are, or do you only read, write, or speak. Bar license. So most of you probably do not have a bar license yet, but if you are somehow already licensed, please select your bar license and put in your bar number there. All right, below experience and bar license is a section called Other.
Oh, Allie?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to just share a little point of information for especially our graduates. If you have third year practice already, just FYI, you are able to use your third year practice 18 months and up to 18 months after it was issued, or when the results of the July bar are released, whichever happens first. So just, I know that some third years are not necessarily aware that their third year practice does stay with them after graduation. So I just wanted to share that with y'all.
I would also encourage you in this other place that I'm highlighting right now with the red arrow. It says, tell us your reason for registering, what types of cases you're interested in, how much time do you have to volunteer. I'm encouraging law students to put their interests, any prior volunteer experience, your time per week you might be available, or if you have availability over the summer. I would also encourage you to mention if you have third year practice in that area so that we can also take a look at that. In the other section, there's an important place where you could kind of preload your interest area with preferred legal service organizations. When you select that, you're going to see a drop-down menu of all of the available legal organizations in Virginia, and unfortunately also in other states. They have not filtered that yet, so I wanted to kind of walk through where you might want to select. In the drop-down area, if you see in this bigger box, you're going to have a list that you can go through. Red X means you are not selecting that. Green arrow means you are. And I wanted to highlight what is happening in Virginia as far as legal aid, so you might be able to pre-select some. Legal aids in Virginia, I've included a map that is a standard kind of regional service area for each of our legal aids. We have legal aids in the Commonwealth of Virginia that some are federally funded by the Legal Services Corporation and some are independent. That does control what kind of cases they can work on. And I just wanted to include a map for you so that wherever you're located, if you want to go ahead and pre-select your home legal aid, that would be wonderful. What does that do? When you pre-select them, that is going to send a notice to that legal aid that you're interested in volunteering for them. It may be that you're not approved immediately, but they will have your name and they will keep you in their queue for when you're needed. I do encourage you, if you're in the Richmond area, to both select Central Virginia Legal Aid Society and Legal Aid Justice Center. They partner together to cover the Central Virginia area, with Legal Aid Justice Center having some less restrictions on their service capacity, and they are able to do things with immigration and some of the areas that Central Virginia Legal Aid Society cannot. But again, you can take a look at that at your leisure. Pro bono case process. So as law students, you are not going to be able to select a case out of the case list to handle independently. But I wanted to point out that there is a case tab on JusticeServer that has a listing of cases. You can filter them, you can create email notifications, and you can also be invited to work on them by lawyers. So I just wanted to mention that right now, in case that comes down the pike in the future. An attorney that has taken a case is able to add a law student to that case to work on it with them. Also in JusticeServer are going to be volunteer opportunities, and this is something that is more general. It's not specific client relationships. Sometimes we in Central Virginia put up trainings on this volunteer opportunity menu. Sometimes we put up clinics. Right now we do have a few that are going on during the COVID period, and I'll highlight one of them. But this is a great way to sign up for things that are exact time typically, and a way to express interest. So when you're on the website, www.JusticeServer, and you're under the Volunteer Opportunities tab, you can see different, I'm gonna hide this. You can see on the left a filtering mechanism, and you can filter by jurisdiction, you can filter by category, or you can filter by legal service organization. And then it's gonna pull up a listing of all the opportunities that are available now. There's also a calendar view. So if you were trying to look at a calendaring aspect as opposed to topic, you can see things on dates. And then if you go over to a dot on there, you can see exactly what is being posted. So when you're in the volunteer opportunities, you'll notice that it says view schedule in the green box to the right of the name of a topic, and you can select that and it'll take you to a page where there are actual opportunity shifts. The pink box will give kind of a high level description of what is happening. I've selected eviction diversion program in Richmond. This is something that we have been involved in since October of last year. And currently, as many know, the courts are closed. So the piece of volunteering in the courts is not available, but we are still working with tenants and landlords to structure payment plans to keep them in their homes. And we do have the capacity to utilize non-lawyers in this, as eviction diversion involves the volunteer in a third-party neutral role. It's not the practice of law. We have a lot of materials, we have mentors, and so I do encourage you, if you're interested in that, to perhaps take a look at signing up for expressing interest. What we have done in the interim of not having court shifts is we have put up general placeholders by week to indicate we have a distance lawyering opportunity here, and you would select the red-green box, which would sign you up. First, you'll have to be approved by the Greater Richmond Bar Foundation, but then you would be in a queue for referrals. Again, this isn't obligating you. This isn't going to mean you have to do work without training. We would never do that. But we are planning on hosting a feature teleconference to discuss how and what you would do.
Allie, can I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
Because evictions, I know, are a big item that's been in discussion as one of the immediate or one of the effects to be expected from the economic consequences of the precautionary measures being taken. How many evictions would you say are and the courts are currently closed too? So you have both the courts being closed, so the dockets aren't being heard on the evictions, coupled with the potential for these eviction numbers to go up. What are the numbers that you are currently seeing, and are there projections for the future?
These are really good questions. It's sort of a moving target. I am involved with we partner with Housing Opportunities Made Equal here, a fair housing advocacy group, to administer this program. Tenants make a call in about being served with an eviction paper and interest in having some assistance for back rent. The City of Richmond has funded a program to assist persons finding themselves in arrears in rent. And we partnered together to not only educate those tenants, but to also connect those tenants with a third-party neutral to negotiate a payment plan between the landlord and tenant. So we are still receiving many calls. The service of unlawful detainers has actually not stopped. The courts may be closed, but they are not closing the doors to filings of unlawful detainers. So the numbers do continue to increase. And it's kind of an example of what might be coming down the pike. When the first judicial emergency order was put in place, the General District Court in Richmond that handles unlawful detainers continued all cases that were on their docket to 21 days in advance. So when the court order went in place, it was March 16th, they dutifully continued all cases and set new cases to the dockets beginning on April 7th and moving forward from there. And when we checked the dockets about midway into that period to see the numbers of cases that were being set for April 7th, there were over 200 unlawful detainers for 1 hour docket. There were 300 other warrant and debt cases. So the dockets are going to be, whenever they're reopened, quite full. Not every tenant on that list of 200 is going to be someone eligible for eviction diversion. These tenants have to have certain qualifications. We are kind of adjusting our program as we go because obviously more people are going to find themselves without resources. More people are going to have a hard time making current rent and not just find themselves in the problem of back rent. But I would say we're easily going to be in the numbers of hundreds needing services. And we definitely are going to be needing volunteers to learn how to do the process now when it's arguably slower, so that when we do have the courts open up, we will be able to connect people. Even when the courts, I was just going to say, even when the courts are open, we have remote work for people that cannot come to court that help us do the payment plan arrangement outside of the court hearing. There's really a couple different pieces of this volunteer experience.
Thank you so much, Allie. And I just wanted to emphasize, and I placed it in the chat, there are more than 200 unlawful detainers pending, and that is just for the City of Richmond docket alone. So
that was 1 day.
Yeah. So that is just to give everyone a sense as to what is coming, what is already in the pike that we can predict. So thank you.
You're welcome. Once you sign up for a shift and you're approved, you're going to get an email confirmation. That's just kind of to let you put it on your calendar. Again, right now where we're not dealing with exact times and exact court dates, these shifts are a little bit more of a placeholder as opposed to a specific court. In general, there's help for JusticeServer use. So if you're not fully understanding what I've said today, you're welcome to go online, and there are screenshots there. You can kind of walk through, test drive. I haven't really gone through a lot of the features of JusticeServer because I feel like it's premature. There are plenty of manuals to explain how you work a case, how you can find resources there. But again, I feel like that's a little the cart before the horse at this point. But I do encourage you to check out JusticeServer to register. If for some reason you're listening to this, you're already registered, but you did not select preferred legal service provider, you are able to sign in, go to your profile, which you'll see right here is a selection, and you can update and edit and go ahead and pre-select a preferred legal provider. And I again encourage you to do that. If you have more questions, you're welcome to email me or call me. We are going to be developing a lot of pro bono programs as on the fly, as needs are determined. We partner with stakeholders in pro bono to kind of look at legal aid's shifting priorities. And I definitely believe that there will be places for law students to meaningfully plug in, an opportunity to serve your community, and we really look forward to having you in JusticeServer. That's kind of all of my stock presentation, but I can go off script and I can go live to JusticeServer just to kind of show any of the pieces that people want to see.
So, Allie, one piece that is, is often asked that I get as a question from law students is, what can a law student do? There's a feeling of that there are many pro bono opportunities in the community that are so attorney focused that there's a question as to what a law student's role could be in some of these. And so I was wondering, could you just describe a little bit about where in JusticeServer does a law student fit in?
Definitely. So again, as I mentioned kind of in the cases description, there's always the opportunity when you have been, I guess, trained in an area to volunteer your services to assist lawyers. We do ask lawyers when they're signing up for pro bono opportunities, are they interested in having law students partner with them? One of the areas that definitely has many cases up in the queue, I'll just go to it. You'll see that we're not the only state on JusticeServer. Case information is at a high level in JusticeServer, but you can see that by going into family law, lots of divorces. So no-fault divorce is honestly a fabulous place for law students to get involved with willing volunteers that want to partner with them. The no-fault divorce is a paper-driven process. It is not requiring a court appearance. And honestly, right now, it is a great opportunity to be getting some of these done because the courts not having their dockets are actually getting to review the paperwork, the final orders, and sending them through the queue a lot quicker. Each law school probably has a different procedure, and I don't want to speak to, the ways that law students connect with lawyers, but definitely here in Richmond, through your Carrico Center, we partner law students with attorneys in that respect pretty frequently. The templates are in there, the pleadings are in there, so that's one way. If you are finding yourself with a job this summer and you're working for an attorney, you can encourage them to take a pro bono case from JusticeServer, and they can partner with, add you to JusticeServer. So again, in supervision with lawyers, you're allowed to do the case work, and the system is designed for remote, both co-counsel or attorney and law student to be in two different places and be able to see the information. So it can be a great way to add to remote learning experience. We also have wills clinics that are often staffed by law students who we have a brief training, are helping create simple wills, power of attorneys, advanced medical directives. We often put those in this volunteer opportunity area. You'll see here, wills clinics has a placeholder, and currently we do not have any physical wills clinics coming up, but we do have some opportunity for lawyers to get involved with healthcare workers coming down. We have a express interest up here for, let me go back, for a new program that we're creating. And again, these are the places where law students can be very helpful in drafting documents under the supervision. They can't do it independently, but they could reach out to assist. And if a law student honestly is interested in trying to be a partner, it again is going to be up to the volunteer attorney whether or not they would like to have law student assistance. But there is no limitation to how many people can sign up right here on this express interest. So if you are interested in trying to help in this effort we're launching soon, please go ahead and express interest. And put that in your reason for registering that you're interested in that, or if you've had experience with wills clinics. Other places that law students often assist are with intake at different legal aids. Sometimes they'll utilize law students. So again, we're going to be utilizing the volunteer opportunities in the future in ways to connect. When you go to a volunteer opportunity, you can tell if law students are acceptable and desired by right here. It'll say how many attorneys and volunteers are still needed, and it says law students still needed. So there is a place that kind of indicates, is this an opportunity that law students might be available?
So Allie, we got a question off of the chat, and the question is, how are you able to maintain client confidentiality through JusticeServer?
Great question.
So there, could you go into a little bit of detail about maybe like the two-step process, one of expressing interest
Sure.
and then the second of actually getting access to case files?
Sure. Again, this process mostly will be experienced by the lawyer because law students are not allowed to take cases, but just in general to explain how we built the system. At this, I'm right now in the cases tab of JusticeServer, and what we have here, a very high level, no client information is being revealed. So you can see, I'll just grab or take a look at this one. It says divorce in Rockbridge County. And it says 33-year-old separated September 2017 and now seeks an uncontested divorce. There are no issues of custody or property. So at a high level, this is not revealing any client information. It's just generic. When you actually go to express interest, which is doing this button, and I won't do it because I don't want to grab this case out of the queue. It gives a tiny bit more detail to that lawyer in order to do a conflict check. It is not, again, revealing any client information. It's just adverse party and the client name in order to determine whether or not that attorney can handle that case. It registers for the legal aid that attorney has done that express interest, so it stops people from just looking at cases. It also will not provide any more information until you've taken the affirmative step of saying you don't have a conflict based on that information. And then before the final amount of information is provided, it has a secondary conflict of interest step. Sometimes you don't really know you have a conflict until you see one more piece of information. So kind of a second bite of the conflict apple. And once you do that, you are connected to that case. You are the only person connected to that case unless you invite a co-counsel or a law student, and there's no exchange of information that isn't protected by a lockdown confidential system. You're muted.
Sorry, I trying to, my fingers aren't fast enough. Just as a follow-up to that piece is that a law student is not mapped to a case until the supervising attorney's mapped to the case. And so the law student cannot access the case until an attorney has taken the case, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, right. So for everyone who's interested in volunteering, you're not out there on your own. You always will be working with a supervising attorney if it's direct client representation, and you will have the safety net of JusticeServer's system in order to make sure you have access to the information that you need.
I would add one thing also. I mean, again, this is kind of a little bit down the road, but if you're partnering with a lawyer and you're partnering through a case on JusticeServer, that case is connected and pre-screened by legal aid or Greater Richmond Bar Foundation if you're handling our cases. And that's a contact person as well. That's a resource. There are resources within JusticeServer to help you do the case. So again, you're not on your own.
And to that, in that vein as well, there's a question. What type of training is available for law students in subject specific areas? So if you're wanting to do a no fault divorce, or if you're wanting to do a wills, you know, you're coming at this with not necessarily the expertise in either subject. How can you be brought up to speed on those areas?
Well, thanks to your website at the Carico Center, and I should have had that just pulled up for you. There are online trainings available in really most of our focus area in Central Virginia. So if you're interested in helping with wills clinics, there's a wills clinic training. If you're interested in helping a no-fault divorce, there's a no-fault divorce along with how do you use JusticeServer to do a no-fault divorce. We have eviction diversion trainings that are videotaped. We really, I guess the Greater Richmond Bar Foundation's mission is to make pro bono easy. And so we use, we utilize the systems in order to have generally accessible training materials, because we know not everyone can make a training on a specific date. So most trainings are videotaped. Most manuals and outlines are saved and connected to that case type. And all you have to do is reach out to your local legal aid, reach out to us, and we can point you towards the different places of information and where the training materials are.
Great, thank you. And for the programs where, you know, because I know that part of the whole goal for this is to make sure we've got the volunteers ready. I remember that when I was in law school, I had this one professor, a con law professor, who kept talking about the marshaling of horses, and that if you marshaled the horses, and I'm not sure what he actually said after that. So for the law students out there, don't worry if you don't remember every single word we said, but I always remember the marshaling of the horses. What are we potentially marshaling our horses for here? We talked about eviction being an issue, but I know that there are a number of folks who are also concerned about things like unemployment claims
Yes.
or other areas, mortgage foreclosure actions, things that are tied to the economic hit that is currently being felt by so many. What do you foresee is coming down the pike as potentially being issues addressed through JusticeServer?
Um, Definitely on the radar of critical need is the unemployment area. At Greater Richmond Bar Foundation, we partner with legal aid in an effort called Triage, where we have designated private bar champions to take a look at different critical need areas for legal aid locally. And we are in the process of trying to create a new triage category of unemployment in order to train volunteers to handle unemployment claims, to handle the administrative appeals involved in that as well. And so I foresee that being something that will be coming on JusticeServer, arguably training notices, opportunities to serve in that way. The Central Virginia Legal Aid Society runs a hotline. I see that coming down the pike as well. Eviction helpline you mentioned, it won't be on JusticeServer, but again, that's something where in partnership with Eviction Diversion, the Housing Law Clinic at Legal Aid Justice Center, these are things that definitely are going to need a lot of volunteers. We hope to start utilizing JusticeServer to kind of prime the pump, as we are saying, volunteers by having some general placeholders for expressing interest. And legal aid right now is in the business of looking at prioritizing their critical needs and seeing where volunteers can be utilized the best. So we're kind of early to determine exactly how JusticeServer will be used, but these are ways it can be used, and we hope to do so. Muted.
And then another follow-up question from that is, because of the current precautions regarding social distancing, we're not able to be at law school, for example. How many opportunities are available for remote engagement? And there's been a lot of talk about distance lawyering in the past, and that usually meant across 200 miles, but now distance lawyering is taking on a different concept. So can you describe what remote volunteer opportunities are available, and how does distance lawyering adjust to meet them?
Right. Well, as you refer to, distance lawyering is a term that we've been utilizing for the idea of pockets of more densely populated attorney areas like the Richmond area, Northern Virginia, servicing those communities that have less attorneys available for doing pro bono, like the Southwest of Virginia or the Blue Ridge area. And so JusticeServer was initially designed to kind of address that gap of how do you connect a lawyer to a client that is truly geographically distant from them, and then the workarounds there, utilizing the system to communicate with the legal aid that's referring. Obviously, when you're doing a distance lawyering case in geographic distance, you're using the phone, you're using the email, you're Skyping, whatever the technology that the client can access. And so similarly, that can be done right here. The client could be down the street from you, but as we're socially distancing, you're going to be utilizing this system to get case information, to get the resources, and then proceeding to do remote work with them. Advice and counsel obviously can be done remotely, as well as a lot of the no-fault divorce and things of that nature that don't involve actual court hearings.
And I think that what's sometimes interesting for folks to learn is that oftentimes with populations that are low income, sometimes the best way to get in touch with them is through cell phone, is through cell devices,
Right.
just because they are now relatively easy to access, and it does not then depend upon what may be otherwise unstable housing. So
Right.
the ability to connect with clients is still available and still there. Um,
Yes, I think with economic impact, we might start to see a little bit more of a trouble in that area as cell phone bills, often is the case in dealing with legal aid clients. Sometimes you can't reach the client by the end of the month, or you have to wait till the phone bill has been paid. But we'll work around those things. And again, it is pretty common that most people have access to a phone. They may not have access to internet. They may not have access to a computer, but they generally have access to a phone. And so that's been a primary way that we have connected clients and attorneys.
so Allie, we got another question from the chat, and that is whether the organization posts the volunteer opportunities through JusticeServer, or if there is some management and oversight through JusticeServer prior to these opportunities being made available.
In order to post a volunteer opportunity at this time, there's 3 organizations that can do so. So Central Virginia Legal Aid Society, Legal Aid Justice Center, and the Greater Richmond Bar Foundation. We were the original core team of developing JusticeServer, and I don't want to get too into the weeds of how JusticeServer is built, but at this time, the legal aids around the state are allowed to post case opportunities, but they don't have a similar capacity to post a volunteer opportunity. If organizations are interested in trying to post a volunteer opportunities, I sometimes work with them to do so. And so that's one way to expand that. But it is not something that the public can access, and it's not something that other organizations can utilize.
Thank you. And Allie, I just wanted to ask another question, because this may be something that is also on law student minds. As we are approaching an uncertain economy, we can't ignore the fact about how the ripple effects of that economy may come into the legal profession and the legal community itself. And so for some folks, they see this as being a tough time to do pro bono when there is a potential strain coming to the profession as a whole. Can you share your thoughts about the benefits of pro bono in these uncertain times?
We don't have enough time. Okay, so um, wow, pro bono service is honestly, I, to me, it's a passion. Um, every attorney under Rule 6.1 is has the aspirational goal of giving 2% of their professional time to pro bono. And I find that not only should we just by rule be adhering to that aspirational goal, um, that everyone should think of it this way. We all want to do something to help our community. We regularly do public service projects, you know, Habitat for Humanity. We get food for the food banks. We help homeless, and these are amazing, soul-fulfilling opportunities to give back. As lawyers and law students, you have a special skill that only you can impart, and you are able to do a public service that others cannot. And I really encourage everyone to utilize that skill and to give back and to find the time to give back with that skill. 80% of legal civil needs are not met. The legal aid system cannot possibly keep up with the case demand. And the way that we give back to our community in a meaningful way is through pro bono service. But not only is it something that can really help you find your passion for your profession, it is something that is going to give you skills. It is going to give you the hands-on opportunity that perhaps you might not have had yet. It's going to allow you to network with existing lawyers in a way that will actually grow your ability to determine what you want out of your profession. It is going to allow you to be in the right place at the right time. Honestly, volunteering is something that just is part of my fabric, and most people I know it is in there somewhere. But pro bono service is truly a way to reinvigorate why you went to law school. You went to help people, and you may get into a situation at work where you don't have the time, but you'll find the time. And I have to say, whether it is a retired pro bono advocate like Andy Ney from Williams Mullen, who just does a full-time job of pro bono, or whether it's someone who takes their first pro bono case, I regularly hear that that was the most meaningful opportunity they've ever done. They've helped thousands of clients, and that pro bono client making a true difference in someone's life is something that will stay with them forever. So I just can't encourage it enough.
Thank you, Allie. And if I could add to that too, I think that this is also a wonderful opportunity to develop skills and expertise that honestly will only enhance your, I guess, your marketability, your
Absolutely.
the connections that you make, the networking opportunities, and also just the skills and experience you develop. It is only a builder. It's not a detractor, which I
Exactly.
think is the win-win opportunity um, for that. Uh, Allie, I think that, we've been able to cover JusticeServer, we've been able to cover the need, and we've been able to cover how things can be done remotely. I think that the one last piece that I wanted to just touch base with you on is now moving forward. Students are interested. They register through JusticeServer. If they don't, what is the next step? When would they hear back? What are the next points of communication that students could expect?
That's great. It depends what they're doing. So if they are signing up and not selecting a preferred legal service provider, they won't have any kind of immediate response, because what it is it's a clearinghouse of all registered volunteers. But what our next moves are going to be is to send a survey to everyone that is registered in JusticeServer as we kind of determine where are our critical needs. And we're going to be asking a little bit more granular questions of, when are you available? What kind of opportunity are you interested in? What experience do you have in any of these areas? Do you need training? And then better assess and mobilize these volunteers. So I do encourage everyone to register if you are pre-selecting preferred legal service providers. Each legal service provider does their own vetting of whether or not to approve a volunteer. So you may have a delay in your approval, but again, I encourage you to go ahead and do so, and we will be communicating with the legal service providers that law students have attended this training and that they're interested in volunteering, and for them to be on the lookout for those requests.
Thank you so much. So I'm so appreciative of the time that everybody took for this. I don't know if you realize this, Allie, but for many of our law students, this is the last 10 days of class, or last,
Ah!
I guess technically the last 7 days of class. And so I definitely am mindful of the time that law students are taking to engage in these discussions and to get trained up to be of service when the call comes. Before we close, we had one more question come up through the chat. Okay, so one of the questions was the opportunities for law students when they have limited or inconsistent availability. What is your advice to that, especially for our student-to-be grads who might be entering into bar prep phases?
Right. You know, it's hard to determine what is actually going to be happening as far as shifts or opportunities that are defined time, but often that's how we communicate designated time opportunities. So, if your calendar allows, you can sign up for one of those. When they're registering, it should put, I'm interested in this, but I'm not sure about my time. Again, nothing is ever an obligation. It's more of an inquiry and interest. And generally, when you're signing up for something and expressing interest, you're going to be notified of opportunities and you take them as you can.
And if I can answer, and if I could just add to that question as well. Um, so there are going to be definitely some opportunities like eviction diversion. I mean, I'm sorry, like the eviction helpline, for example, is an opportunity where you sign up for a designated shift. And I know that the advice given to many folks who are studying for the bar exam is as best you can to achieve balance in your life, because bar prep is a marathon, it is not a sprint. So as much as you, and the analogy I even take further is, if you're training for a marathon, you always remember to stop at the water stations. And if you don't stop at the water stations, you are going to have some struggles with the marathon, with the race. So for some, the water station might be volunteering. It might be service. That might be how you replenish your energy and and clear your mind out and feel connected to your community is through volunteer service. And if that's who you are, then doing shift-based work where you can plan out the time, where you know where your defined beginning and end of service will occur, is something that actually may help as you do your overall bar prep plan. So I hope that helps in answering some questions. And my totally unsolicited 2 pennies regarding bar prep. Now you know how my students and advisees feel. Are there any questions from folks? Okay. No other questions are coming up on the chat. So I do want to say thank you so much, Allie. It is always a pleasure having you speak to folks remotely. You are still as engaging and energizing as ever. And I hope that everyone who's been on the call today, the least you can do is register. Like if all you can do right now today is register, that's a great first step to take. And then stay tuned for the next steps. But if nothing else, just register today, be counted among those who are willing to serve, who are stepping up to the challenge, and you will hear when that challenge is being called. So thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you, Allie. This recording will be posted on the University of Richmond Law School website, as well as with links to JusticeServer. If you have any questions, please feel free to email Allie. Her email address is in the chat, and you know where to find me as well. So thank you all so much, and I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Stay healthy, stay safe, stay home.
Thanks.